Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. I'm very apprehensive because we tried this morning a couple of times and it didn't work. I'm going to give it that classic hot moment. There we go. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. We get the right glasses here. I have to admit I was not overly hopeful that it would work this time, but it appears that it has. Okay, Robin, you are there letting me know it has worked. I am so sorry for the odd time. Catherine, you are there. Fingers crossed. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, this morning something must have happened, so I'm gonna have to spend some time there figuring out why Streamlabs, which is the program I come to you on, wasn't communicating with YouTube. So yeah, you can imagine how well I reacted to that. Not being a computer person or a computer lover, you can imagine. And I hope that you can only imagine because that plug was plugged in when I lost my mind a few rounds through. And I dearly hope that you didn't hear all of the things that I said. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I am Deanna. It looks like we're going to roll. Sorry for the odd time. Good to see you, everybody, after this weekend. Nice to be back in touch base. I wanted to come on and run a color show for you again because I have other things to run. Like the Magpies, I think, are arriving today. My stock of Magpies. I've got the first one I ordered. Like, this is not the author's one. That I ordered the author's ones that come in a huge, like in bulk. But this one I ordered as like a separate just one because they can get just one out quickly. The author's copies it takes longer because it's like a big number. So I have it in my hand and I want to look at Magpie with you because we never do that. We never do that. This is the Telling the Bees on the front cover. It's a beautiful issue. Here, let me show you. The green screen is going to play us, but it's a beautiful issue with lots of different kinds of articles, news from Japan, all of the bee stuff, the Hive Mind projects and galleries, content that you all have put in that I haven't seen yet. Looks really fun. Looks like a great issue. Oh, there's Barbara's Zentangle Bee. That's one of the free designs. Kirsten, good to see you. Yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff in here. I haven't really had time to go through it. Lots of patterns in the back. And I know Haley has an article in here. Leah Fudge has an article in here. There's a lot of buddies with articles in here. The beautiful layer. We'll look at this later. Maybe we'll look at this on Friday together. You know, one of the other things about this issue of Magpie, if you're getting it from me, a bunch of people asked me to sign the issue. That's why it's coming through Ribbon Candy Hooking as opposed to just through Amazon. I will sign the ones if you ask me to on the first page rather than on the cover. You know, just mess wise. I think. Can you let that animal outside, please? It'll lose it. I'm right on the edge today. Okay, bring it back, Mama. Bring it back. Bring it back. Anyway, one of the curious things about this issue, is that it has a matte cover. So that was a mistake on our part. It's the same quality. It's the same weight of paper. Listen to this. Right, it's a really thick cover, really high-end magazine. Right, it really is. It's thick. And these are 100 pages, right? So we're with no ads. So I feel like we're doing really well with Magpie. But it has a matte cover, and we did that by accident. But I have to say, give me your feedback if you get your issue through me as opposed to Amazon, because the Amazon, we've switched it back to the glossy cover so it matches the others. But I have to say, when I look at this cover, I almost feel like it looks like more of a, I don't know, like gallery publication. Not that it's all about being high end and snooty or whatever, but I don't know. I have to say it's a weird surprise, but I kind of like it. So we'll look at that together, maybe on Friday, something like that. Maybe I'll have somebody on maybe I'll have someone on who's featured in Magpie Times and have a conversation. That would be fun, wouldn't it? I'd like to talk about the issue with somebody so that we have like a multi-conversational night. Good. It's all coming together. I'm so sorry about that, everybody. Catherine and Robin, Kirsten, Catherine Norcroft, glad you got it working. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming back. Yeah, super frustrating. You know, I think it wants me to do something else, like give it rights to the rest of my computer And I'm going to just have to ask somebody about that because that's different. And I think it wants to upgrade or something. Really reluctant to give it rights to my computer. Why does it want to be in there? Sounds like something else. I'm not even going to get started. But why does it need to be in there? I don't know. It's always worked, right? I'm so sorry about that, everybody. Dave, great to see you. That's right. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Oh, I would have worn green, but because I don't have the green screen behind me and I can't shut this setting off, it would be all like woozy floozies. So I've got a tie-dye shirt on today so that we can talk about our dyeing stuff. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. I guess we're not celebrating today because I forgot that it was St. Patrick's Day. And ever since my sweet little grandmother died, who was like a little leprechaun, she was all Irish and she was born on this day. So she was Irish and French actually, with a St. Patrick's Day birthday. Ever since she's been gone, it's just a lot less fun for us on St. Patrick's Day. And they do have a huge thing in New Haven, so that is a clear reason for me to avoid it. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, however you're celebrating. Blast it out and have a great day. Let's see, looking forward to seeing. Yeah, me too. I want to spend some time looking at it. Everybody who ordered it should have got the digital copy, but it's great to have the copy in your hands as well. Kaz, great to see you. Good morning in Wisconsin. Karen, great to see you in Black Forest, Colorado. I know, I missed you during that time too. I prefer that time because I'll tell you what I did in the meantime. I made good use of it, I have to say. Sandy, great to see you. A green beer. A green beer does sound good, particularly after that. I didn't actually drink tequila, as I said I might, because that was so challenging for me. Instead, I took my wool bolt, right? I have a nice wool bolt from Dormill right there and some others on deck waiting to be ripped up. And I started figuring out how to make these swatch sets. This is what today's episode is going to be about. We're going to continue our conversation about color and these vintage swatch sets. And I am going to put together, I've got them soaking in Synthropol, a bunch of 8 color gradient swatch sets. So meaning they go from light to dark. Some of them, I think, as we've seen in previous episodes of color theory, talking about these dyeing books, dyeing wool for rug hooking. Sometimes a color is a pure color that goes from the lightest value because it's only in the pot for a split second to the darkest value. Some colors, because of the chemistry of the color and what colors are actually in the one color, right? Because they're all compounds. Sometimes they need, at the end of the dye run, to make them darker, a secondary color that is usually complementary to get it to pop, right? With the highest or most saturated, deepest values, meaning the darkest ones or the brightest ones, the superlatives, as opposed to the very, very pale pastel ones. So I'm going to figure that out with a bunch of colors, and I'm going to turn them into actual like old-time swatch sets with the paper thing that closes over them, staples them shut, and they're going to be this size. So they're going to be slightly oversized swatch sets. This size is about, what is it? I wrote it down. Did I throw it out in my rage? These sets are, I think I threw it out in my rage. Here, let me just measure it really quick. Now, these will shrink a hair in Synthropol, but the swatch sets, there will be 8 swatches that are about about 4 inches by 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, about 4, it's 4 by 15 before it goes into the Synthropol, and then it shrinks a hair. But these are quite big swatches. Well, let's compare them to, for example, these are the, this is like the door size swatch here. Like this traditional is this size. So they're quite a bit bigger than a traditional swatch, right? They're going to be this big. And to be honest, you know, all of these are all different ones. Let me grab a door because those are still ones that you find. Why don't I drop one more thing and then I can just overturn the table legitimately, right? No, I'm over it. I'm over it, really. Let me just compare a contemporary door. Yep. So, you know, you can get door swatches still like in the door shop and stuff. So it's going to be this kind of size. And while I love using these swatch sets, the door swatch sets, they are beautiful and I love finding them and I love using them. For me, the wool is a little bit too thin, at least for me, a hair too thin. For how I like to hook. And although I'm able to use them, I feel like it's always this much for me is not enough. I need a little bit more. Whether I'm doing a couple of leaves or a flower, I need at least two. So I'm hoping that doing them in a larger size is going to make more sense so that you can squeak by simple things like a leaf or two, you know, small surface areas with one swatch set as opposed to two, but we'll see. So I'll have those up probably tomorrow. I'm going to be dyeing all those later. And I've got some of my colors ready. I'm very excited. I feel like it's very sort of retro and vintagey to put together a new line of swatch sets. And I feel like it's going to be a lot of fun to play with them. And I'm very happy with this size. Yeah, so let's see, to be continued on that. That'll be a lot of fun. Penny, great to see you. Welcome. Shannon, top of the morning to you. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Great to see you. And Rita, great to see you. Top of the morning to you too. All right, you all are celebrating. You're putting me in a better mood already. So we'll be talking about Magpie Times probably on Friday. I'm going to work on these swatch sets this afternoon. Dang it, I wanted to show you the thing that's on my frame. I'll show you that next time. I'm working on my rose patterns. And I finished The Poet's Wife. I think I showed you that. At least I showed it in Facebook. I'll have to share that. And I've been working on the Blue Girl, which has kind of a tropical islandy theme. And there's like a topless lady with a grass skirt, like very artsy and graphic, right? It's not like disgusting. It's pretty. And she's looking sideways at this overgrown rose that it's this beautiful bluish purple rose. It's called the Blue Girl, an actual rose. It's a hybrid, of course. And in the center is like a face that's like sleeping. So the Blue Girl is actually a girl inside the center of the rose. And then there's this other girl who is looking at her sideways, like wondering what that's all about. It's a really cute design, I think. Mwah, mwah. I really like it. And I'm hooking it mostly with bat. So I'm back to my bat, although I did order a bunch of sari ribbon. Karen, I have to say to you, I don't think I've said this yet. The other day on a live show, you suggested, I was struggling with The Poet's Wife. I was struggling with the leaves. And I was going to use my scrubby stuff, and I ordered the scrubby stuff, and it came, and it's great. But in the meantime, you said to me, what about velvet? And I forgot that I have like the mother load of velvet in the basement. Like I've got buckets of it. And I went down and got it, and I hooked the thing up in velvet, and it's like my favorite thing I've ever done. So Karen, thank you so much for suggesting velvet, because although I've hooked with velvet a lot, I wasn't thinking about it in that moment, and it really was the perfect answer to that rose. So I'm using the scrubby greens for this one, and I'm also using sari ribbon, wool bat, so unrefined, like not woven, but just shreds of bat like cotton candy, and a little bit of wool. So exciting. And I am in the midst of planning a book party for the Rose's Tale, which will be probably at the end of June. And then there will be what will be our yearly Halloween party in the Berkshires, probably the week of Halloween, when the Mystic Carpet comes out, which is the next Halloween book. So be thinking about the Rose's Tale is kind of done and dusted. Everybody's finishing working on their pieces, starting their pieces, finishing their pieces. A lot of people are ahead of me. But if you are already thinking about the Halloween book, please let me know, because I need to put those messages in a special folder so that I know you're looking for a pattern for that book. And the Haunted Rug was more like a workbook, because there was like 98 patterns in it. It's more like a workbook because there were so many patterns. You were meant to see an example of one, and then you could photocopy it, trace it, hook the ones up that you like. The upcoming Mystic Carpet is also going to be a pattern book, but it's going to be, I don't want to do any two books alike, so it's going to be a little bit different. So if you have ideas, things you'd like to put in, you want to do more than one piece, you want to give me a theme that fits well with autumn or Halloween, I love to be challenged with like, well, can you do me a series of like 2 or 3 of this so that I have kind of my own section in the book? That would work too for the Mystic Carpet. I want to avoid doing tarot related patterns, because I do want to do a separate tarot book, and maybe that will be for next fall. In any case, lots to think about and lots to talk about. So if you have thoughts or ideas for me, you have submissions for Magpie Times or submissions always for gallery night, I always send those right to our friend Shannon. Thank you. And we can get those ready. I think gallery night will be not this Friday, but the Friday after. So you can always write to me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. So let's come back over here and let's talk about color. I really thought when I started this series of color talks that it would be boring and that we would do it for about 15 minutes and go, okay, I got it, moving right along. But I think we're really actually, hopefully, enjoying conversations on color, because whether you dye or not, it is great to talk, to define color, to assign language to specific colors, and to be aware of what the possibilities are and how color works with or without the color wheel. So this structure, these books that I have that are dye books from past rug hookers, they are typically using these vintage manuals that are a little bit hard to find, but you can occasionally find them, and have put together, typically I would say this book is maybe 60s, 70s era. The book itself that it pulls from is 1953. So Anyone Can Die by Clarissa Cox, C-O-X, Clarice. This book was made with recipes that are in this little book, and it's a staple-bound book. So when you find these little dye books, it is nice to pick them up if they are going, particularly if they're going for a song, because, let me just keep that one out, because it's nice to know what colors go into the color that you are looking for, looking at, about to use, or planning to dye. Until we can, I'm coming over here. Paula, great to see you. Color is never boring. You're so right. It's never boring. I just wanted to be sure it wasn't boring for people who don't do dyeing. But I think these are good conversations for us, whether we're dyers or not. Oh, you know what I forgot to tell you? I did, you know how we said so many times, because it's so true, that when you look at these little swatch sets, it looks like a bunch of dresses. It's so true. I was working on a design this morning. That's another thing that I did between 11 and 12 when I was struggling with technology. I started sketching a design that looks just like this. That can be a bunch of little ball gowns. Now, it might be that you have swatch sets and you want to do a pattern like this, because we know that these are swatch sets, but from a distance, they look like little ball gowns. It's very appealing. So I'm putting a design together that is the ball gowns. I'm going to send it out free for Patreon members. You'll see that later today. And otherwise, it will be in the Ribbon Candy Hooking store. Whether you have swatch sets already, or you're going to get some new swatch sets from Ribbon Candy Hooking, and you could even repeat, but it'd be great to do something like this. It's very, very, very appealing, and it's a great optical illusion. It's a funny kind of rug hooking joke, right? So let's come over to this color that we have not we kind of ended on the pinks. Well, the pinks are definitely my favorites, but we are moving into a range of different colors here. And let's see what we got. So moving away from this is the last slide from our last conversation on color. Those can be found on the Ribbon Candy Hooking YouTube channel, just where you are. I'm moving to swatch number 25, which, as you can see, is a blue. Now, you remember how in this book they give us very dated and quite narrow information, suggestions about how colors should be used. We're just focused on number 25, the blue one right now. It specifically says, and this color is just blue. It is 1 teaspoon of blue. And by blue, these are all Cushing dyes, right? No variations. Straight blue, not aquilon blue, not indigo, not robin's egg blue, just blue. So this is straight up blue, 1 teaspoon. And it says here that you could use this color, or any color in this range, number 25, for provincial or geometric type patterns only. Did you catch that? Only. So that's how strict the rules could be in the 1950s, right? You could only use it for geometrics and provincial designs. That's it. Of course, we would never abide by those kinds of rules in this day and age. We would say to ourselves, I need blue, that's the blue, I'm going to hook a blue mousse, and that's the color I'm using. And no one would think anything about it now. But in the 1950s, it would be a bit of an oddball move, right? So interesting to include these tidbits too. The blue really is lovely. And these are the kinds of sets that I'm putting together. This is a gradient set. It is a one color set that goes from the lightest value to the darkest value. Does it mean that the darkest value has a little black added? No. The darkest value is blue that has been saturated the longest, aka in the water with the dye the longest time and has the most dye in it. It's the most saturated, it's the most intense, but it's still the color blue. Is the lightest one the color blue? Yes, still the color blue. Cheryl, good to see you. Oh, great, you're on your way home from the hospital. I'm so glad. Well, welcome home early to you. Very happy to see you. So this is about as simple as it gets in terms of a recipe. It's blue. Now the second one is a bit more of a curiosity. Oh, no, sorry. We can still look at the same slide. Number 26 I'm looking at now. Now, number 26 is 3 different colors. I'm gonna tell you 2 of them, and I'm gonna ask you what color family you think the last color is. Number 26, the one that's kind of brownish, is half a teaspoon of rust, 3/8 teaspoon of terracotta, and there's one more color in the mix, just a pinch, 1/32 of a teaspoon. What do you think the third color is? Rust and terracotta are quite similar. Rust is typically more brown, terracotta is more of a reddish brown. What do you think the third color might be, color family for number 26? And I will say this color, number 26, it is the suggested use. It doesn't say suggested. It just says use it for trumpet flowers, tulips, pansies, apricots, tiger lilies, hibiscus, peaches, and oriental poppies. That is it. That is it. Do not use it for geometry. I mean, isn't it funny though? Isn't it funny? But do remember, right, this book came out in 1953. When did paint by number come out, right? We've said this before, but we haven't said it lately. The idea of paint by number, when did paint by numbers start to be produced? 1950 on the dot is the answer, 1950. So in 1950, people were not only willing, they were anxious for you to tell them where to put every tiny bit of color, right? No liberties, no interpretation. Just show me this piece, this piece, show me the number for that, and I'll paint that spot. And that was the point, right? I'm not mocking it, but it's a highly technical approach, isn't it? There is no room for interpretation or personalization when you work in the paint by number style. Well, that was 1950, and this book is 1953. So we're having technical conversations about no guesses on the last color. We're having technical conversations on color that bear having, because we all use these colors, whether you're buying them or dyeing them. Salmon, Dave, that is very, very close. It's pink, so I will accept salmon. I will do a family feud, and I will accept salmon. It's a little bit more pink than salmon to swing away from the browns, because the salmon is like a gradient of the terracotta, because it's got that orange hue to it, but a touch of American Beauty pink. And in past episodes, we have had conversations about the color American Beauty, because we never refer to it as a color anymore, but it is a very specific, very bluey pink. So a bluey pink like American Beauty would go into the pot with rust, brownie brown, and terracotta, more orangey brown. And that little bit of pink would cut it enough that it would have this kind of rosy, fleshy color to it. It would really temper all of the brown and orange coloring that's happening. So interesting, isn't it? The darkest value the darkest two values on 26. So to the far right, the last two, those last two have had a wee bit, this is the measure, a wee bit of dark brown thrown in there. Dark brown is a cushion color, right? It's not like any dark brown. It's like dark brown is the color, right? There's lots of browns in the Cushing line, but this is just dark brown. So the last two have a wee bit. It's going to be just a few grains of a darker brown just to punch it home. So at the end of the day, swatch number 26 as opposed to 25, that is one color. Swatch number 26 is actually 4 colors: rust, terracotta, American Beauty, and dark brown. just the last two. So 4 colors to make that range, right? And does it look like a gradient? Not exactly, right? It looks like there's a slight color shift happening, but does this run of gradient colors work together harmoniously? Yes, it absolutely does. It's a beautiful set. And if we weren't looking at the recipe, we might not know that the last two, one of these kids is doing his own thing. The last two are different than the previous 4. Interesting, isn't it? All right. If you hear those crazy noises, it's my stomach growling because I forgot to eat breakfast. I mean, that hardly ever happens. Let's look at 27 together. 27 is a really very lush, springy color. This is one of my favorite offbeat type colors. And the use for number 27 is leaves, pears, daisies, and apples. Full stop. Number 27 is made up of 1 teaspoon of chartreuse, which is like a yellowy green, and a speck of medium brown. So for all intents and purposes, number 27 is chartreuse. Now, if you wanted a color that was a little bit more pear and less bright, go to Dharma, the Dharma brand, go to Golden Pear. That is a, no, wait a minute, I'm wrong. Nope, it's not Dharma, it's Prochem, sorry. Prochem Golden Pear is a beautiful pear color that is a hair less citrusy than what you're seeing here. Chartreuse does bring the citrus color because it goes toward like a lemon lime. Very, very intense. It's like if you've ever drank chartreuse, God help you. It's very strong and it is more, it's a little bit more green, but it is this kind of neon color. So this is 1 teaspoon of chartreuse with a speck of medium brown only in the last 2 shades. So again, it's almost a pure color and a nice gradient that goes from, it's not natural or white. The first value is still quite yellow. But you can see the conversation that we've had along with this series. When you drop wool into your color bath, no matter how well you have stirred that bath, because every color is made up of different components, the chemistry, you know, what colors are in chartreuse? Well, definitely green, maybe brown, maybe even a little bit of pink. Honestly, pink is in like everything. We don't know until it hits the pan, and then you stir it, and it seems like, okay, we're good. It is chartreuse. I don't see any little bursts of colors. Nothing is going to go wrong. But you put your material in there, and you find out sooner rather than later, if you become a dyer and you enjoy doing this for funsies, you will see that sometimes the full color does not come out until you are at a medium to high saturation. So the lighter colors don't always pick up the entire story of that color because they don't hit until later in the saturating and exhausting process. Some pigments hit sooner, some pigments hit later. So even if you're working on a swatch set that is one color like blue or chartreuse, it sometimes does feel like in your run of gradients, in your run of values, that there are other colors in there, and there are not. It's just that the different colors are striking at different times, right? And so it is imperfect. This is why, if you're a knitter, you know that when you buy your skeins of yarn, that they go in by color, right? They all have a name, tiger lily, but then they have, what do they call them? Dye batches. There's a different word, isn't there? It's not batch. Pot, lot, there's a different word. But you know that they were all dyed in that same moment. So if it's like the second run of a book, right? The second printing of a book, it's going to be the same thing with the book, but with fiber, it's going to be a hair different. It's always going to be a hair different. Is that aggravating? Not for me. Is that aggravating for you? For me, I consider that part of the beauty and the uniqueness of working in fiber art. It is not dye lots. Thank you. Thanks, Paula. Oh, Jessica, good to see you. Hello in Ohio. I didn't know much about dyeing, but I will enjoy listening. It is a lot of fun, and there is a lot to say, weirdly. Now, number 28. Oh, I love this. I love this. This is one of these in-between colors that's made up of 2 of my all-time favorite Cushing colors. So let's look at number 28 on the right. I'm going to tell you the two main colors, and then you tell me for the last two shades what color family you think they added a little wee pinch of. The main colors in series number 28 are Wood Rose, which is a brown rose color, a brown pinky, and Spice Brown, which is another pinky brown, but brown heavy. Wood Rose is pinky brown, but pink heavy. Spice Brown is pinky rose, but brown heavy. Spice Brown is very unusual. Wood Rose is very unusual, and I have not found in any other brand line, Dharma, Prochem, Jacquard, Rit, anything. I have not found sort of counterparts or equivalents to Wood Rose or Spice Brown. Now, number 28, what color do you think is added just a tiny bit to those last two swatches, the two on the far right, the darkest ones? This can be used, according to Clarice Cox, for almost any flower. Makes lovely tiny roses, such as found in Helen King's Daisy Scroll. Ooh, that's a very particular reference. Ooh, Dave says dash of navy blue. No, but you're close. And thank you for playing. I'm going to respond with the answer by saying plum. So you're right in there in the color family. You know, and it's funny, Dave, because if you did substitute like a navy blue for a plum, I bet it wouldn't look that much different because we're talking about a wee pinch. But we do need a darker, inkier color to swing it toward the high value end because it's too light, right? It's too light and it's too pinky. It needs a boost of a darker, more inky color like navy blue, in this case plum, to make it really reach its apex in terms of seeing that color to the finish line. Now, it would be curious and interesting to take a swatch set like this. Like if you order one of the ribbon candy swatch sets, say you, okay, say you get a swatch set, it has the 8 colors, and you rip them all in half so they're all this big, which is still a, you know, it's not gonna do a background, is it? But it's still a good amount for hooking something small. Say you rip them all in half and you put them all into a dye bath of like navy blue or plum. Then you would be marrying whatever color you bought. Let's say you buy my set that's like going to be called Blueberry Hill, and it's like a nice it's a nice blueberry with like a little bit of a purple whisper to it. So let's say you bought the set that's called Blueberry Hill, and you wanted the last two values of those light blues to be a different color. Say you threw them into a bath of, for example, like a grassy green color or a yellow color. And if you threw them all of the 8 different swatch sets, if you threw them all into a pot of a different color just for a second, stirred them up just for a second, pulled them all out, they would remain 8 distinct colors, right, that were slightly over dyed by another color. Now that would be so interesting because the color that you would choose, grass green, for example, would marry together the all 8 colors, right? Because what would all 8 colors have in common? The original color that they are, in this case, like the blueberry purple color, plus that those halves would also all have a touch of grass green, all of them. Would they all go together? Incredibly well. They would all go together very well. That would be really interesting. That's one of the fun things to do with swatch sets, is to over dye them just a little bit. Because that's when you get these combos that are like, you look at someone's work and you go, how did they get that? It's just gradients, right? It's just gradients. When we see something that has a mottled background and you say, oh, it's all blue, but some of it's dark, some of it's like, that's just mottled. That's one color or a mix of colors. That's putting the material into the dye bath and not stirring it. Because if you stir it, it comes out one solid color. If you don't stir it, the color sits in different pockets, right? As it sinks down, right, to the bottom of the pan, it sits differently and you end up with it looking patchy. Some of my existing swatch sets are mottled, others are solid, right? But mottled is different than gradients, right? Gradients are a run of colors. So you can take one strip of a gradient, like number 2 in a series of 8, and say, oh, interesting, these are actually series of 6, many of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So a couple of them are 8, but most of these are series of 6. Interesting. Um, yeah, a completely different look. And when you see pieces where you have an effect on a flower, I'm not necessarily talking about pure realism. I'm talking about when you see something and it really glows and you think, how did they do that? They did it with gradients. They didn't do it with modeling unless they were very strategic about cutting up modeled wool and these pieces are lighter than those pieces, right? That can be done too. But if you're really going for very strong sort of optical effects that hinge on the success of dark versus light contrast, then we are talking about gradients. Like 9 times out of 10 we are. Dave says, I've used chartreuse with a micro dash of red, warm chestnut brown. Ooh, that would be very nice. All of these colors that we're talking about, the color that Dave just described, the colors that I've been, oh, Dominique, hello, great to see you. These weird colors that we're describing are often done by over dyeing, and are for me the most interesting colors. And some of the pure dye colors, and I tell you when I think of them, wood rose is one, certainly spice brown is one, timber wolf is one, tobacco brown. Those two are from the Dharma line. Occasionally there's a color that I think is such an oddball color that you use it straight from the container, the packet, and it already looks like it's over dyed. It's already super unusual, and you can't really get a baseline on it because it's a little bit, for example, brown, but it's a little bit purple, and you can't say what color it is. Those colors are magic, right? And those colors are often drab. But so unusual. We say drab because it's descriptive, but it doesn't mean that it's a boring color. Sometimes those in-between colors are so unusual that they steal the show. And you can often get those in-between colors by over dyeing something that is on the opposite side of the color wheel, right? Which we're getting a little bit technical, and we can talk about that in more detail. But for example, if you wanted something really sort of orangey, yellow orangey, to go rogue, you could put a pinch of a blue in there, and it would, right, opposite the color wheel. It would kill the glow of the orange and muddy it just a little bit. But that muddy color is going to be one of those mystic colors that everyone says, what color is that? It's still like a beautiful, vibrant color, but it's not orange, it's not blue. The color is fighting. The color is having a civil war unto itself. And those make the most interesting colors. And those colors, when you hit them with an opposite dye family color, right, or opposite on the color wheel, those colors will read as drab in our classic rug hookers recipe, DLDB, dark, light, dull, bright, right? So when you think dark is obvious, light is obvious, bright is obvious. What's dull? Dull is one of those muddy colors that doesn't look like anything else, right? Anything that fits that description, like all of swatch number 28, would fit dull, right? Because again, it's not. I don't mean dull like boring. I mean dull like it's not vibrant, right? It's a mix. And 28 indeed is a mix. It has wood rose, spice, and plum. You wouldn't call any of the colors in 27 dull, would you? I mean, I wouldn't. The last one is more intense, but it's still very distinct. Same with the set of blue swatches. If I was going to call any of them on 27 dull, it would be the last one. But I don't think it's particularly dull. None of the blues were dull, right? They are one color. They are one color. And it's hard to do a dull value with one color unless you're going for a neutral, like a gray family or a brown family, obviously, or a black family or a white family, right? Those are the black, white, brown, and gray really are neutrals in rug hooking, or textile art in general. So it's hard to get anything but a dull from those families. But if we're talking about wanting to get a dull that's in a different color family, we're usually talking about a mix of colors and not a straight up color. Number 29, right? This is an unusual one because this does read as dull to me. It reads like almost gray. And it's not your monitor. It reads as grays grays and purples, despite the fact that number 29 is made up of one color. And believe it or not, it's 1 teaspoon. Believe it or not, the color is bright purple. Now, I'm talking about the one on the left. Now, interesting, right? It says, the text says, don't let the name fool you. This is a lovely, soft, bluish purple. I'll say, right, like that is as far from purple as, I mean, purple I think is my favorite color. I would call it dark purple, and it is made up of a lot of black because there's a lot of gray in it. And purple, right, a little bit of, in my mind, the actual color, because it is only bright purple, Cushing bright purple. In my mind, I see black, purple, and blue, but I think the least black, the least purple. It's even got sort of more indigo to me than it has purple. Interesting color, and we've talked about this before. Sometimes your or my interpretation of what the color should look like based on the language, based on the name of the color, sometimes is not at all the color that you think it is. That's why it's difficult to choose. If you go to, for example, Dormill, and you're looking at the packets of Cushing, and you're looking at the colors and you're thinking, yeah, I definitely know what watermelon looks like. I know what cherry looks like. I know what bright purple looks like. It might not be the color you think at all, right? And they're not super expensive, right? They're just a few dollars. So and they're all beautiful colors that obviously you can mutate, but they're not always the color that you think they are, and that's why it's nice to look at swatch sets. Number 30 over on the right is made up of 2 colors, two more of my all-time faves from the Cushing line, mulberry and mahogany. Mahogany is like in my top 3 Cushing colors because it is such an unusual purpley brown. How can it be a purpley brown? I don't know. But look over on the right. Mahogany, now mulberry is like a deeper, more blue purple. And together they make this oddball run of dull colors that I think are stunning. 3/4 tablespoon of mulberry, 1/2 tablespoon of mahogany. So slightly less mahogany. Mahogany is a strong color, and man, it is a beauty. It says in the directions, if you want slightly more purple cast, add just a little bit more of the mulberry, right? If you're looking at it and you're thinking, too brown for me, add a little bit of the mulberry. What a beautiful run, just the 2 colors. It's fruity, it's woodsy, it's autumn time, it could be any season. It would go into, well, let's see what they suggest. It could be used for roses, poppies, grapes, tulips, dahlias, and an iris. It could be used for anything. It's absolutely a stunning color. Sharon says, listening. I bet I try my pause. Listening, maybe while you try your pause. I'll let you know how it works out. Yeah, let us know how it works out. Let me just take the sideline, real quick sideline. I'm going to shut this stupid thing off because I feel like there's light coming in now. Let there be light. Thank you, Noah, for the end of the biblical rain the last few days. So the pause, right? As we get into the Easter season, remember the Pause Eggs brand that you dye eggs and things if you celebrate. They have the tablets, they have the gels, which are like in these squeezy packets, almost like Chinese food, like soy sauce, the squeezy packets. I would advise against the gels, whether it's Pause or any brand, because the gels create a sticky, stiff finish that you really cannot get out of your wool without almost entirely washing the color out. And it makes beautiful, strong color, but it is very stiff to work with. It's not impossible, but it is very stiff. I still like the tablets the best. And of course, if you use Pause tablets to dye your wool, they are not super color fast. You probably won't get crazy vibrant color, but you will get beautiful color. The thing with the Pause tablets is they mix well and quickly. So it's very easy to get muddy colors fast. I would try to stick with like colors, like yellows with greens. I would try to stick with analogous colors, which are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Because if you're doing a yellow and a blue, it might make green. It could make green. You put a hint of orange in there and it goes straight to brown. They're very fussy and they're very limited colors, but finesse them, play with them, pay attention to your color changes. It's great to work with non-toxic color sources like food coloring and pause at this time of year. Super fun. You could also do experiments on casserole dishes where you have like a damp or even wet piece of wool, stove at about 320, and just put the tablets all over the thing, pop them in there. That'd be a fun thing to try. And see what happens, right? It'd be very localized color, very low, unless your wool is pretty wet, not in a lake of wet, right? Not in a pool, but pretty wet. Then it might sort of saturate and bleed to other colors. That could be really interesting. There's lots of fun things you can do with those color tablets. And like I've said before, the Paz is like the premium. It's like the Rolls Royce. The quality of the tablet is no different than it is with the boxes that come out with the dollar store. The dollar store ones, the tablets are exactly the same. They perform the exact same way, but they're really cheap. So you could get a whole bunch of them. And you could also over dye colors that you have sitting in your stash that are not that interesting for you. So while we sit here talking about how to make different colors, you could be saying to yourself, well, I have got all of these browns and I'm so tired of these browns. They've had them in this bag for a really long time. Well, get some of those pause things, right? Drop this in a pool of yellow pause tablets or yellow orange pause tablets, and then you'll have a different color, right? That's dyeing too. Dyeing doesn't have to mean that you're using a recipe book, right? When you cook for yourself in the evening, do you always use a recipe book? Because I personally never do, right? I'm not that into it. I have to say, I like all food. So, I mean, I'm usually taking things out of packets. I eat a lot of healthy stuff, but stuff that comes out of packets and rice that, you heat up for 30 seconds. And I'm not using recipes, right? But I get the same thing, a bowl full of food to stuff my face with, right? It's the same result. So whether or not you're using these chemical dyes and you're using these fancy recipes, or you're using Paz dyes and you're over dyeing stuff that you already have because you don't want to get a whole different set of designated pots and pans to do chemical dyes that are toxic, you think to yourself, oh, I'm gonna clean out the dollar store with all of those packets. I'm gonna sit on them this year, let them restock, right? And I'm gonna have all these new dye colors. That's gonna work great for you too. All right, let's keep going in the meantime. Yeah, definitely let me know how that turns out, Sharon. Karen says, I prefer dyeing eggs with silk ties. Yeah, that's a great idea. Remember, silk ties is still garment dye, so they will be toxic, right? I mean, do I think that you'll croak like at the Easter table when you're unpeeling it and eating it? No, but silk ties, the dyes that make a silk tie are garment dyes. So in theory, that would still be toxic. Just saying. I know it's like all over Pinterest, but garment dyes are still chemical dyes, for what it's worth. And but they do make beautiful eggs. My God. And Catherine says, I am a first-time dyer and I'm having a blast with RIT dye and pantyhose. That's a great combo. RIT dyes are super, super strong and they mix very well. They've been at it forever too. And yeah, with pantyhose is a great combo. Now, remember, I'm going to say it because Haley said it the other day when I went to visit Haley. It's back. The biblical reign and darkness is back. When I went to visit Haley the other day with Naomi, Haley said, she divulged, she shares a lot of great information. She's such a sweetheart and I just love her. Haley Perry at Loop by Loop. I was buying some of her pot holders and she said, while we were recording that video, that she gets those pot holders and then over dyes them. So you can get sets of pot holders, whether they're nylon or cotton, and you can over dye them. What does that mean? It means you take the entire bag and all of the different colors that are in them and drop them into the dye bath. Do you have to drop the whole bag, like the whole 2-pound bag or whatever? Of course not. Just take a handful, drop some of them into the yellows, drop some of them into the greens, right? Or into your Paz baths of different color. And so you've married all these colors together. You have got a whole new set of colors to work with, right? And I just, oh, pity readjusting herself. Now don't fall off the bench, honey. I like to sit right next to Mama, and nobody can see her, but she's my little softie right there. Yeah, pantyhose are fun too. You could just get some pantyhose from Ocean State Job Lot or whatever your dollar store is, or if you have a good source online. Do the same thing. You don't have to put the whole pair of pantyhose in there because it goes a long way. You could just chop off one leg and put them in one dye bath or into another, and you have so many different colors to play with, right? It's such a lot of fun. You don't have to go full blast buying bolts of wool and buying all of these color lines, right? You don't have to do that. So let's move right along. All right. Oh, that's a nice set, isn't it? What's that, number 35? No, I'm sorry, number 33. Number 33 is a straight up color. It is rose pink. Boom, just like that. Rose pink is really pretty. This is 4 teaspoons of rose pink, and you can add a speck of dark brown to the last 2 shades to soften the rose pink so that it's not so pinkety pink, pink the stink. You can add it to a little bit of brown so it's not quite so cheerful, because sometimes pink can be obnoxious. But if you really want true pink, then do not add a little bit of brown. Don't add a speck of anything. This is rose pink, and in this case, the last 2 shades, there's a little bit of dark brown added. So rose pink is different than the other Cushing pinks, right? There's rose pink, wood rose, wild rose, and then just pinks. But I'm just talking about the roses here. So the wood rose is really brown. The wild rose has a little bit of brown and blue in my mind. And the rose is, and then there's the American Beauty rose, right? So there's 4 different rose colors at least just in the Cushing line. Of the Cushing rose pink choices, this is the most pink, right? This is for me like a carnation pink. It's really pure. It almost has a little bit of a strawberry feel to it. It is to me a perfect pink. It's right in the middle of the road. If you're looking for a perfect pink for a blush or for cheeks, this is it, right? The others are rose colors, but they're more distinctive. Just as God knows how well I know this, how many colors of roses there are working on the rose book. There'll be lots of conversations about color in the rose book, about dyeing and different shades of roses, because roses come in so many different colors. And yes, there are a lot of brownish roses. Bubblegum pink. Yeah, it is. It's like bazooka, Karen. That's exactly what it is. It's a straight up pink. Beautiful color. And in this case, until when you get to the last 2, you can feel that it is kind of saddened a little bit, right? But and that's just dyeing language. Like I don't have tears in my eyes. It's a little bit saddened with the brown for the last 2. Until then, you see like this upswing in bright pink, and you expect it to go almost neon, but just that speck of dark brown, Cushing dark brown, saddens it, brings it back down just a little bit, kind of grounds it, and makes it into this natural pink as opposed to this wild neon pink. Beautiful color. Number 34 right next to it. Moving right along. Let's see, number 34. Okay, there's some pages taped together here. Interesting. Wow. Okay, get ready. I'm going to make this one bigger. This is going to be a seat of the pants. I'm going to make this quite a bit bigger because there's a lot going on in number 34. Okay, so number 34 is the one well, it's over on the right, but you see all the different values here. Let's start with that. So let's look at number 34. This is not an easy recipe. So the first shade, which is the lightest shade, is only wild rose, right? Very, very, very soft. Just with your eye, and we are on the swatch on the right, it's more pink. When you get to the end, right, it's absolutely blue purple. And if your eye says, I don't see a relationship between the first one or the last one, good for you, right? Because there's a lot of change in the middle. So the first shade on the far left of that swatch set is just wild rose. The second shade is wild rose with a little bit of straight up blue, Cushing blue. The third one is wild rose with a little more Cushing blue. The fourth one is wild rose with a little more Cushing blue. The fifth one is blue with a little bit of wild rose. The sixth one is blue with a little less wild rose. The seventh one is blue with even less wild rose and a speck of silver gray. And the eighth and final one on the right is blue with wild rose and actually more wild rose and a speck, so just more saturation, and still a speck of silver gray. So there are 3 colors in this swatch set, but this is a complicated recipe because they have, most recipes, when we're talking about gradients, you throw your swatches into the bath and you pull them out one by one. And of course, the longer they're in there, the more saturated they become. This is a much more active recipe for dyeing, meaning between every color variation, you need to take the colors out and change the dye bath, right? So you are changing the recipe for each one to get different levels of the same 3 colors, mostly wild rose and blue, but a little bit of silver gray. So depending on how much you like to dye, how important it is for you to get exactly the right color, you can participate in this kind of a dye recipe where every gradient has a different recipe, right? It's not one recipe and it's like light, medium, dark, done. It's a different recipe for each swatch. And some people will say, "Oh, that sounds like a challenge. I'd like to do that." And other people will say, "No thanks, Satan, not today." But if you're one of the maybe today Satan people, then it's important to look at these kinds of recipes. They're much longer. It takes up almost a page in and of itself. And there's things to do along every step of the way. But you do get a beautiful color range that is not boring. It doesn't go from light to dark. It moves. It shifts. It's much more dynamic. And it's much more work, right? So something to think about there. All right, let's move on. I'm going to try to do a couple more before we log off, and I'm going to go and dye some colors right after I do. Hang on, what's going on? There we go. Nope. Wait a minute. I want number 35. Where'd you go? Oh no. Oh no. Number 33. Am I missing a set? I'm missing a set. Yeah. Let me just check, because I've done this before. 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Wait a minute. Let me see if it's somewhere else. Sorry, I'm taking you for a little bit of a ride here. 35, 36. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to just come to you here. I want to just show you these 2 because these are the last 2 for today. So I'm going to show you a swatch set. This can be number 35. And let me show it to you first. I'm going to take it out of the book. It'll be easier. This swatch set's right here, and I'll bring it into focus. Now remember, let me shut off my light and see if this still, nope, we need it. Okay, this one right here. This one right here. So number 35 is silver gray. Remember, we were just talking about silver gray in the last swatch set. Silver gray and blue. So this makes kind of, blue is blue, right? Blue is proper blue. You would think it would make like a denim color, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It makes, in terms of ratio, it's a 1/4 teaspoon of blue and a 1/2 teaspoon of silver gray. So there is much more silver gray in this recipe than there is blue. You can see a shade of blue, right? But it doesn't read as any variety of denim or a blue. It reads as a gray. So 1/2 teaspoon of silver gray, 1/4 teaspoon of blue, that's it for this. Any blue flower this could be used for, or shadows in a white flower, or scrolls. Right? So unusual color, because in my mind, it's like, is it enough to just have like the gray? The gray really is a neutral. You add a little bit of blue and you've really got a different color here. It's a very cool gray. Cool in terms of temperature, right? Now let's look at this guy over here. This one is number 36. And this is wild rose, right? We talked about wild rose a little bit earlier. Apricot. Both of those have some orange. And a wee speck of, W-E-E, speck of, again, silver gray. Interesting, right? So wild rose, right, which is, wood rose is more pinky. This one is more sort of bluey with a little bit of rust in it. But with the apricot, it really goes toward orange and a little bit of silver gray. 3/4 equal teaspoons of 3/4 teaspoon of wild rose, 3/4 teaspoon of apricot, so equal amounts, right? And then a little bit of silver gray to the whole run, right? Not just the last ones, but to the whole run. Interesting. Yeah, maybe I should leave it at that. Yeah, we're 1 minute away. If you want to satin your colors, and you aren't familiar with the color wheel, and you think, make it easy peasy, go toward like a gray or a brown, right? Go toward a neutral to satin or kind of temper the color. You'll get the best result in terms of an unusual color if you jump opposite on the color wheel. But you can bring colors to another place with neutrals. I would not go to black unless you really expect to make the shadow version of the color you're thinking of, because black, even a small amount, brings black, right? It brings the color black, whereas there's a reason why they're doing a wee pinch of silver gray. It's a very light color, right? You can build it, it's buildable, but it's a light color. There's a reason that they don't say a wee pinch of black, because a wee pinch is still going to be overpowering. So if you are looking to dampen or satin, I can't think of a better word for it. It's a good word for it. A too bright color, be looking at opposite colors on the color wheel or a neutral color like a brown or a gray, but very small amount. And of course, if you go to a gray, you might be looking at a cooler temperature as opposed to a brown. There are warmish grays, but for the most part, they are cooler colors. For browns, for the most part, they are warmer colors. There are exceptions, right? Because we can make so many versions of every color, as we see. But in general, going to a brown will keep it warmer, but kind of dampen it, you know. And a cooler would be a gray, but not a black. A black, you're going to be surprised at how different one spec will make it. It'll take you in a totally different direction. It's too strong in most cases to use. We haven't encountered, I think, any recipes yet where they have used black at all, not even one grain. And there is a separate conversation that we won't have today, because I'm going to log off and actually do some dyeing. There is a separate conversation about what the eventuality of any color is meant to be. For example, if you buy a packet of wood rose, how much water do you have to put in the pan? And how large of a scoop, right? What measure of wood rose do you have to put in there for it to be the color that is meant to be wood rose, right? That is an abstract conversation because the answer doesn't exist. And your idea of wood rose would be different than my idea of wood rose, just like your idea of denim would be different than my idea of denim. Are we talking about acid wash jeans? Are we talking about super light summer jeans? Are we talking about the super, super dark Gloria Vanderbilts? We might be talking about different things. So it's not a conversation that has an answer, but it's one of those, hey, if you wake up at 3:15 in the morning, God forbid, I'm not wishing that on you, but if you do, it's an interesting thing to think about. When you buy a packet of color, bright purple, as we saw earlier, does it look like bright purple? Not at all. It looks like grayish aubergine. There's nothing purple about that color in my mind. And even for Clarice, right, in 1953, she didn't feel the color was purple at all. So interesting. But it is worth thinking about when you're color planning, right? Instead of just taking out all your wool and laying it on the table and go, maybe this, try a different approach to color planning and try thinking about what kind of mood am I trying to evoke? Am I doing a piece that it's like a family picture piece, a storytelling piece, and it's summer and we're all on the beach and it's getting to be dusk and we just lit off some fireworks and we're barbecuing food and there's lots of mosquitoes and the temperature is great and everyone is here. If you're trying to get that mood, be thinking about language, right? A different approach to color planning. Be thinking about what colors would those be, like indigo blue. Be thinking about colors that you already know. Like I'm looking for something inky. There might be a hint of purple. Maybe depending on where you live, it's more tropical. You've got different water by you than I've got. Because I'm thinking about like deep navies up here in the Atlantic, but you might be thinking about teals or greens. Be thinking about what colors you mean to evoke with the mood of the piece. and start assigning language to colors. And then if you are going to dye, you can say to yourself, okay, this is teal blue, right? Jacquard does a beautiful teal, straight up teal. Also, Prochem does it not quite teal, but does a beautiful color called mallard, which is a green that has a little bit of blue in it. It's definitely a darker green, but it has a little bit of blue in it. Dharma does a beautiful, I've talked about this one before, sage leaf, that's a blue green as well. They're all different, right? But they're very similar and they would go great together. Be thinking about, okay, so if I want these colors in here, make a list of what you would call all of the primary colors. I want the background to be grapey blue, right? I want the water to be inky navy, right? And once you have your language in place for those colors, it becomes easy. If you're fooling around with dyeing, it becomes easy to pull colors and say to yourself, I know what I mean by teal, right? It might not be Cushing's teal or Jacquard's teal. I know what I mean. You can start experimenting with colors and making runs of colors and crossing colors until you get the color that you call teal, right? And it's fun when that happens, because in doing that, you make your own language for colors, right? So your wood rose is truly your wood rose and not Cushing's wood rose or my wood rose. It truly is. And you have favorite colors, whether you know it or not. You will always go back, no matter how much you like variety and things to be different. You like a certain color palette, and so do I. And it's different for all of us. You will go back to those colors. You will want to go back to those colors because you love those colors. So if you have the time to figure out what those colors are, it's a good use of time. And when you start crossing those colors, all of your wool will go together, whether it's over dyed pantyhose or weaving loops, potholder loops, or wool or white t-shirts, right? They all will perform differently. But you will find your family of colors. You will cross it, you will marry it, you will see that your whole wall of materials goes together. And you will say to yourself, my God, what have I done? You'll say to yourself, really, like, did I do that? And you did do that because you were crossing colors that you already liked, and you're creating your own language for colors, your own swatch sets, and you know how to remake those colors if you're good at organizing them. So it is fun. It is fun to play with dye. You can do the same thing with paws. Half a tablet of paws, right? You could grind up paws with 2 spoons, like old-timey medicine, right? Spoonful of sugar time. You could grind it up and just say a pinch, like a pinch of this color. You can do the same things with natural dyes, with food dyes, with chemical dyes, right? But once you start making up a book like this, right? This is like your scrapbook, right? This is your work. This is unique to you. This is your recipe book. This is something nobody can replicate or take away from you, because all of your favorite choices and favorite colors and all of your unique experiments are in this book. So if dye colors are exciting to you, that sounds great. If you're like, I like talking about color, but just list it on the website and I'll get it, that's also great, right? That's why ribbon candy hooking exists, and I can still do this for my job. It's great talking about color with everybody. I will be back with you. I'm not sure when. I've got a lot going on this week. I teach again on Friday at the Meeting House. So I'm at the Unitarian Society of Hartford, 50 Bloomfield Avenue. On Friday, you'll see that in the Facebook group. If you're anywhere near Hartford, let me know. There's a little room left in the class. We can add a little bit. We can add a couple more tables, but it was pretty full the first time. It was a highly successful class. Everybody did really well. It was really exciting, and I'd love for you to be there. Just let me know if you're coming, because space-wise, I have to kind of plan for that. There is a little bit of space, so just let me know. There are 2 more that I'm doing. One this Friday, and then skip a Friday, and then one two Fridays later. So I will be there for that. I also have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. They'll probably cut some more skin, more divots on my. Cut some more freckles off just to see, just for S's and G's, right? But we'll see how that goes. I'll see how the week goes. If I can come back to you on Wednesday, I will. But look out for look out for a word from me. And in the meantime, on Friday, I plan to talk about this issue of Magpie Times. They have already shipped to me, so hopefully they come in the next day or two, and I can sign them and get them out to you if you ask for a signed copy. If you are in this issue of Magpie Times and you would like to contribute something to the Friday show or be live with me for the Friday show, just let me know. We could do a split screen. But I'd like to look at this beautiful big magazine together and all of these great patterns and all of the projects that you did on Friday night for cocktail night, ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. Karen says, I'm always so inspired by dye shows to get back into dyeing myself. Me too. I'm going to eat. I think I've transcended hunger at this point, but I'm going to eat. And then I'm going to get into the dye kitchen, and you will see some really fun new swatch sets emerging. I hope that they're successful. And I can't wait to share them with you. So I will see you soon. Keep an eye out. Happy afternoon, everybody. And